Alex leaned against his apartment's kitchen counter, sipping on a mug of instant coffee and staring out the window at the endless glow of the mixed-species housing complex. Living here had its perks: decent rent, cutting-edge amenities, and a chance to meet beings from all corners of the galaxy. Still, the cultural differences occasionally made things complicated. The sound of a chime interrupted his morning routine. He opened the door to find Zyra, his neighbor, standing there. She was tall and elegant, her semi-translucent skin glowing faintly with shifting patterns. Her wide, curious eyes met his, and she offered a hesitant smile. "Alex," she said, her voice carrying a lilting cadence. "I require assistance." Alex blinked, caught off guard by her directness. Sure. What's up?" "It is my transmitter," she explained. "It has become uncooperative. I need someone with steady hands and strong focus to assist in its repair." He tilted his head, trying to decipher the unfamiliar phrasing. "Transmitter? Like, communications equipment?" "Not precisely," Zyra said, her glowing patterns shifting slightly. "It facilitates harmonic alignment. Without it, my residence becomes unstable." "Harmonic alignment?" He didn't want to seem ignorant, so he nodded like he understood. "Okay. Yeah, I can take a look." Her patterns brightened, which he assumed was a gesture of gratitude. "You are most kind. Please, follow me." Alex followed Zyra down the hallway to her apartment. The door slid open to reveal a sleek, minimalist space illuminated by soft, pulsing lights. In the center of the room stood the so-called transmitter, a towering, crystalline contraption that hummed faintly. Strange symbols glowed intermittently across its surface. "Here it is," Zyra said, motioning to the device. "It requires recalibration. The frequencies must be balanced, or it will fail to resonate properly." Alex scratched the back of his neck. "Right. So, how do I recalibrate it?" Zyra stepped closer, pointing to a series of dials and levers. "You must adjust these settings while maintaining a consistent flow." "Flow?" Alex echoed, glancing at the dials. "You mean, like, power flow?" "Exactly," she said with a sharp nod, though her tone suggested she meant something more nuanced. He crouched next to the transmitter, examining the controls. "All right, let's see what we're working with." Tentatively, he turned one of the dials. The transmitter emitted a low hum, which quickly escalated into a sharp tone. Zyra's patterns flickered rapidly. "Careful," she warned. "If the frequencies clash, it may destabilize." "Noted," Alex muttered, sweat already forming on his brow. He adjusted another dial, and the sharp tone softened into a pleasant melody. "There we go. That's better." Zyra leaned closer, her patterns pulsing in what seemed like excitement. "Yes, that is the correct range. You are adept at this." He smirked. "Not my first time messing with alien tech." As he worked, Zyra's proximity began to feel intense. She hovered just over his shoulder, watching his every move. When he adjusted another setting, she exclaimed, "Your touch is precise. The transmitter responds well to you." Alex nearly dropped the lever he was holding. Thanks." She gestured to another section of the device. "Now, adjust the secondary frequency. It must harmonize with the primary tone." "All right, secondary frequency." He moved to the indicated controls, doing his best to keep his focus on the task and not the increasingly suggestive phrasing. He turned the knob, and the transmitter emitted a series of melodic pulses. "Yes," Zyra said, her voice filled with delight. "You are aligning it perfectly." "Glad to hear it," Alex said, though his mind was racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that her words carried a layer of meaning he wasn't catching, or maybe it was just his imagination running wild. The transmitter's hum grew louder, and its crystalline structure began to glow. Zyra's patterns brightened in response. "It is nearly complete," she said. "The final adjustment requires steady hands. Will you assist?" Of course, Alex said, though he was beginning to wonder how complicated this favor was going to get. He moved to the final set of controls, a row of sliders that seemed to pulse faintly under his touch. Slide them in unison, Zyra instructed. Slowly. Deliberately. Got it. Alex placed his hands on the sliders and began moving them as directed. The hum of the transmitter grew deeper, resonating through the room. Zyra watched intently, her glowing patterns almost hypnotic. As the sliders clicked into place, the transmitter emitted a powerful, harmonic tone. Zyra's glow intensified, and she let out a sound that Alex could only describe as a contented sigh. It is done. Alex stepped back, wiping his hands on his pants. All right. I think that should do it. Zyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. You have exceeded my expectations. Your assistance has been invaluable. He shrugged, trying to downplay it. Hey, no problem. Happy to help. She stepped closer, her gaze steady. This level of alignment is rare. Your contribution was crucial. Alex scratched his head, unsure how to respond. Thanks. Glad I could pitch in. You must stay, she said suddenly. His eyes widened. Stay? Why? The transmitter's resonance will continue to evolve, she explained. Your presence may be required for further adjustments. Alex blinked, processing her words. You mean, there's more? Possibly, Zyra said, her tone serious. For now, you have my deepest gratitude. Your efforts have restored harmony. He nodded slowly, backing toward the door. Well, glad to hear it. If you need anything else, just let me know. As he stepped into the hallway, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. What the hell just happened, he muttered, making his way back to his apartment. Whatever he'd just done, he was pretty sure it wasn't a simple tech fix. Alex spent the rest of the day trying to convince himself that the transmitter repair was nothing more than an innocent favor. Still, something about Zyra's phrasing lingered in his mind. Harmonic alignment, flow maintenance, your touch is precise, the phrases played on repeat, each one sounding less technical and more suggestive. Just as he was settling onto his couch with a drink, the door chime rang again. He sighed, setting the glass down and heading to the door. There was Zyra, her glowing patterns dimmer than earlier, and her expression unusually serious. Alex, she began, her tone softer than before. The transmitter has destabilized. His shoulders slumped. Seriously? I thought we fixed it. We did, she said quickly, stepping closer. But it requires constant refinement to maintain optimal resonance. I fear the issue is more nuanced. Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to hide his frustration. Okay. What do you need me to do this time? Her patterns brightened slightly, and she clasped her hands together in what he assumed was a gesture of gratitude. It is not the transmitter itself. It is the frequencies. They must be manually synchronized. Manually synchronized, he repeated, narrowing his eyes. I thought that's what the dials and sliders were for. They are, Zyra explained, but only partially. The final step requires direct interaction to stabilize the harmonic flow. Alex stared at her, confused. Direct interaction? What does that even mean? She hesitated, her patterns flickering. It is simpler if I show you. He sighed, grabbing his jacket. Fine. Let's just get this over with. Back in Zyra's apartment, the transmitter was glowing faintly, its hum uneven and dissonant. Zyra approached the device with reverence, motioning for Alex to follow. She placed her hands on two glowing panels flanking the transmitter and turned to him. These panels are the key, she said. Each responds to an individual's unique essence. Together, they create the harmonic bond. Alex raised an eyebrow. Essence? Are we still talking about tech, or is this some kind of spiritual thing? It is both, she replied cryptically. Please, place your hands here. He hesitated, looking at the panels. And then what? Simply follow my lead, Zyra said. I will guide you. Reluctantly, Alex placed his hands on the panels. They were warm to the touch, and the moment his palms made contact, the transmitter's hum grew louder. Zyra's patterns began to pulse rhythmically, and she nodded approvingly. Good, she said. Now, synchronize with me. Synchronize? Alex asked, glancing at her. How exactly am I supposed to do that? Focus on the resonance, Zyra said, closing her eyes. Allow the frequencies to guide you. Alex frowned, feeling thoroughly out of his depth. The panels beneath his hands vibrated gently, and the hum of the transmitter shifted, rising and falling like a melody. Zyra's hands moved in a slow, deliberate pattern, and he tried to mimic her movements. The transmitter responded immediately, its glow intensifying. Zyra opened her eyes, her patterns pulsing brightly. Yes. You are attuned. Attuned, Alex repeated, his voice flat. Great. As they continued, the resonance deepened, filling the room with a rich, harmonious tone. Zyra's gaze met his, and she smiled. You have a natural gift for this. Pretty sure I'm just winging it, Alex muttered, his focus split between the panels and her increasingly intense expressions. You are doing more than you realize, she said. Your essence is stabilizing the flow. He couldn't stop himself from snorting. My essence, huh? That's flattering. Zyra tilted her head, her expression earnest. It is not flattery. It is fact. Few can achieve such alignment on their first attempt. Lucky me, Alex said dryly. As the process continued, the transmitter's tone reached a crescendo, and Zyra's patterns pulsed in rapid succession. She stepped back, her hands dropping to her sides. It is complete. Alex let go of the panels, flexing his fingers. So, that's it? We're good. For now, she said, though her tone carried a note of uncertainty. He groaned. What does a for now I mean? The harmonics are stable, she explained. But they may shift again depending on external influences. Of course they might, Alex muttered, rubbing his temples. Why wouldn't they? Zyra stepped closer, her patterns softening. You have been exceptionally helpful, Alex. I am deeply grateful. Yeah. Well, I'm just glad it's working, he said, avoiding her gaze. Let's hope it stays that way. Before he could make his exit, Zyra placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. There is one more thing. He froze, bracing himself. What now? The bonding session, she said, her voice calm but firm. It is customary to solidify the connection after such a successful alignment. Alex's mind went blank. Bonding session? Yes, Zyra said, her patterns brightening. It is a simple interaction, meant to enhance the resonance. His mouth opened and closed as he searched for a response. Zyra, I'm not sure that's a good idea. She frowned slightly, her patterns dimming. Why not? It is an integral part of the process. I just don't think I'm the right guy for that, Alex said, his voice strained. Maybe you could find someone else? Her head tilted, confusion evident in her glowing patterns. But you have already contributed so much. It would be illogical to involve another now. Alex's face burned as he scrambled for an excuse. Look, I think I've hit my limit on harmonic alignment for the day. Let's revisit this bonding thing later. Zyra studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. I will respect your boundaries. Thanks, Alex said, exhaling in relief. I should probably get going. As he left her apartment, his mind raced. Whatever he just agreed to, or narrowly avoided, he had a sinking feeling it wasn't the last he'd hear about it. Alex didn't even make it back to his couch before the chime rang again. He groaned, rubbing his temples. Zyra stood at the door, her patterns dim and her expression a mix of concern and urgency. He barely opened his mouth before she spoke. It has destabilized again, she said, her voice calm but firm. We must address this immediately. Destabilized? Alex asked, leaning against the doorframe. Didn't we just spend half the day stabilizing it? We did, Zyra admitted, stepping closer. But external variables are influencing the resonance. I cannot resolve this alone. Alex sighed, running a hand down his face. Let me guess. More harmonic alignment? Zyra nodded, her patterns flickering faintly. Precisely. And this time, we must enhance the bonding resonance. There it was again, bonding. He hesitated, torn between refusing outright and his reluctance to let her down. All right, he muttered. Let's just get this over with. Back in her apartment, the transmitter's hum was louder than before, a dissonant, grating tone that made Alex wince. Zyra moved quickly to the controls, adjusting dials with a precision that suggested the situation was more serious than she let on. It is reacting to environmental interference, Zyra explained, gesturing for Alex to join her. The synchronization process must be intensified to counteract the instability. Intensified, Alex repeated, staring at the pulsing panels. You mean, like, the last time, but more? Yes, Zyra said, her voice calm. I will require your full participation. He hesitated. Define a full participation. Zyra turned to him, her glowing patterns shifting slightly. Place your hands here, she said, motioning to a set of new controls. We must operate in unison. Alex stepped forward, reluctantly placing his hands where instructed. The panels flared to life, their glow brighter than before. The vibration under his palms was stronger, almost distracting. All right, now what? Follow my movements, Zyra instructed, her hands gliding smoothly across her own set of controls. The flow must be seamless. Alex mirrored her motions as best he could, though the transmitter's vibrations made it difficult to focus. Is it supposed to feel like this? He asked, glancing at her. Yes, Zyra said, her patterns flickering. You are attuned. The sensation indicates a successful connection. Great, Alex muttered, shifting his grip. And how long do we have to keep this up? Until the harmonic resonance stabilizes, she replied, her tone matter of fact. Maintain your focus. The transmitter's hum grew louder, its tone fluctuating wildly. Alex tried to keep up with Zyra's movements, but her speed and precision were hard to match. You're making this look way easier than it is, he said through gritted teeth. You are doing well, Zyra said, her patterns glowing brightly. Your essence is integral to this process. He flinched. There's that word again. Are you sure we're just talking about frequencies here? Of course, she said, tilting her head slightly. What else would we be discussing? Never mind, Alex muttered, his cheeks burning. The vibrations under his hands intensified, and the transmitter emitted a sharp, piercing tone. Zyra's expression grew tense. The resonance is faltering. We must adjust the flow immediately. How? Alex asked, his voice rising slightly. I'm not exactly an expert at this. Follow my lead, she said, her hands moving in a more intricate pattern. Do not deviate. Alex mimicked her as best he could, his movements awkward and hurried. The transmitter's hum began to smooth out, its tone becoming more melodic. Zyra's patterns brightened again, and she nodded. Yes. That is correct. Glad to hear it, Alex muttered, his arms aching. How much longer? We are close, Zyra said. Maintain your alignment. The transmitter's tone shifted one final time, settling into a deep, resonant hum. The vibrations under Alex's hands subsided, and the panels dimmed slightly. Zyra stepped back, her patterns glowing steadily. It is done. Alex exhaled, letting his hands drop to his sides. That was intense. You performed admirably, Zyra said, her voice soft. Your assistance has been invaluable. Yeah. Well, I'm just glad it's over, Alex said, rolling his shoulders. For real this time, right? Perhaps, Zyra said, her patterns dimming slightly. But the bonding resonance is still incomplete. Alex froze. Incomplete? What does that mean? She hesitated, her gaze steady. The harmonics are stable for now, but the bond must be finalized to prevent future disruptions. There's that word again, Alex muttered. What exactly does finalized involve? It is a simple interaction, Zaira said, her tone calm. It will ensure the transmitter remains aligned. Alex's mind raced. Look, Zaira, I'm all for helping out, but I think I've hit my limit for one day. Her patterns dimmed slightly, and she stepped closer. Alex, your contributions have been vital. The alignment cannot be completed without you. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for an excuse. Maybe we could. I don't know, revisit this later? Like, way later. Zaira studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. If that is your preference, I will wait. Thanks, Alex said, backing toward the door. I really appreciate your understanding. As he left, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last he'd hear about bonding or harmonic alignment. What did I get myself into, he muttered, retreating to the relative safety of his apartment. Alex sat on his couch, staring blankly at the ceiling, hoping the interruptions were finally over. He had barely let out a sigh of relief when the door chime rang again. His head fell into his hands as he muttered, of course. He opened the door to find Zaira standing there, her glowing patterns dimmer than ever, and her expression almost pleading. Before he could ask, she said, Alex, the transmitter has destabilized again. Again, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. What now? A cosmic storm? Random interference? The universe hates me? Zaira tilted her head, her glowing patterns flickering faintly. The interference is internal. The resonance requires a deeper bond to achieve full stability. Alex closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. Let me guess. This is about the bonding session, isn't it? She nodded solemnly. Yes. Without it, the transmitter will fail, and the harmonic alignment will collapse entirely. Alex opened his mouth, ready to deliver a hard no, but the sheer desperation in her expression stopped him. He groaned, running a hand through his hair. All right, fine. But this better be the last time. Zaira's patterns brightened slightly, and she motioned for him to follow. You will not regret this. That's what I'm afraid of, Alex muttered as he trailed behind her. Back in her apartment, the transmitter was glowing erratically, its hum sharp and dissonant. Zaira approached it with urgency, her hands moving swiftly over the controls. She turned to Alex. For the bonding session, we must synchronize fully. This requires direct physical alignment. He froze. Direct physical what now? Zaira stepped closer, her glowing patterns pulsing softly. It is the final step. You must trust me. Trust you? Alex repeated, his voice an octave higher than usual. Zaira, this is starting to sound less like a tech issue and more like something else. It is only a process, she assured him. One that involves cooperation and shared energy. Shared energy, Alex muttered, shaking his head. You really know how to sell this. She guided him to stand beside her at the transmitter, placing his hands on a glowing panel. Follow my lead, she said, her voice calm but firm. As she began moving her hands across the adjacent controls, Alex mirrored her movements. The vibrations beneath his palms intensified, and the transmitter's hum grew louder. The glow of the device seemed to envelop the room, and Alex could feel an odd warmth spreading through his hands. Stay focused, Zaira said, her tone steady. The alignment is delicate. I'm trying, Alex said through gritted teeth. But this feels like I'm plugging myself into a reactor. Zaira's patterns flickered in what he hoped was encouragement. You are doing well. We are close. The transmitter's tone shifted, becoming deeper and more resonant. Zaira turned to him, her gaze steady. Now, we must harmonize completely. Match your movements to mine. Alex hesitated but followed her lead, his hands mimicking the precise, fluid motions of hers. The device's glow intensified, and the room filled with a low, harmonious vibration. Zyra's patterns pulsed in perfect rhythm with the transmitter, and she nodded approvingly. "It is working," she said, her voice almost reverent. "The bond is forming." Alex wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or alarmed. "That's great. So how much longer?" Zyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed her hands directly over his, guiding his movements. The contact sent a jolt of warmth through him, and he froze. Zyra? What's happening now?" "This is the final phase," she said, her voice calm. "The connection must be completed." Alex's mind raced, and he struggled to keep his tone even. "Are you sure this is necessary?" "It is the only way," she said, her glowing patterns unwavering. As they continued, the transmitter emitted a powerful hum, and the vibrations beneath Alex's hands grew stronger. The glow around the device intensified until it filled the room. Zyra's patterns flickered rapidly, and she let out a soft exhale. "It is done." The vibrations stopped, and the transmitter's tone settled into a deep, steady resonance. Alex let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, stepping back from the device. "So, that's it? We're good?" Zyra turned to him, her patterns glowing steadily. "The harmonics are fully aligned. The bond is complete." He nodded slowly, trying to process everything. "All right. Well, glad I could help." Again. Zyra stepped closer, her expression softening. "You have done more than help, Alex. Your contributions have ensured stability for the foreseeable future." "That's nice to hear," he said, his tone edged with exhaustion. "But I think I'm done with harmonics for a while." She tilted her head, her glowing patterns shifting slightly. "You are always welcome to assist should the need arise." "I'll keep that in mind," Alex said, backing toward the door. "But maybe next time, try calling a professional." Zyra's lips curved into what he thought might be a smile. "No professional could have achieved what you did." "Right," Alex said, his voice trailing off. "Well, good luck with everything." As he left her apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling that this favor had implications far beyond anything he'd anticipated. Back in his own space, he collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. "Never again," he muttered. But deep down, he had a sinking suspicion this wasn't over.